Hey guys, in this tutorial I will show you how to motion track 3D particles and create smoke with them, and how to motion track optical flares. It's quite easy to do if you know how to motion track. If you don't yet, then be sure to check out my motion tracking tutorial. And this is what we're going to be creating. As you can see, we have some pretty nice 3D smoke which is tracked to the scene. We have a flare in the background which is also sticking to the scene, and yeah. First of all, motion track is cinematic, and if you don't know how to do that, check out the tutorial on the screen right now, and then come back to this one and I'll show you what we're gonna do now. So first of all, let me just disable all these layers. I'm actually gonna delete them. So what we have now is our motion tracked scene. You're gonna make sure, if you want to add particles and smoke, you gotta do something different than if you just want to add a flare. I'll first of all show you how to I'll show you how to composite the whole thing, smoke and flares. Because otherwise, if you just want to track a flare, you can just select one of the points, create a null object, and then set the mode of the flare to 3D, but I'll show that to you later. But I chose rather centered null objects for the center of the scene. To create that, just click on any point, then control click it again, go to ground plate, set origin, and that's going to put your center of the scene there. But I'll leave it there for now, because it's really in the center of the scene, and that's the best if you want to add smoke here. So first of all, I'm going to show you how to create the smoke. So what you're going to do for that is download the file in the description, or just get any other smoke picture which doesn't reach the end, because otherwise this is gonna be a particle. We're gonna use particular to create those particles and to basically have many of those pictures. So what you can do now is you could add some turbulent displacement if you want, to make it like seem a bit more like it's moving, and then just play around with the settings, but I'm not going to show that to you now because I'm sure you'll figure that out. Then just create a new white solid, and like that, and drag it below the large smoke picture. Then set the set this to Luma matte, so we actually have some transparency going on. As you can see now, you won't really see the smoke, but yeah, otherwise you would just have a black background in the particle, and that would look shit. By the way, I've learned this technique from videocopilot.com, so props to Andrew Kramer, I guess. And yeah, I'm just showing you guys this technique because it's pretty easy and looks quite cool. So what we're going to do now is create a new black solid. Oh, it doesn't really matter, it doesn't have to be black. And let's name this particles. Then put the trap code particular effect on there. So what we have now is some particles tracked to that very point, which is exactly what we want, but we want them to be all over the screen. So for that, now first of all, we don't want the particles to generate as the clip starts, because we don't want the smoke to just appear, because that wouldn't look too cool. So what we're gonna do now is bring up the particles per second, then keyframe that and bring it to 0, and then just bring that to the very start of our composition, so that way we wouldn't have any more particles emitting from that point on. So the next thing we're going to do is change the emitter type from point to box or sphere, whatever you want, just a 3D object, I guess. And we're gonna move this whole thing to the right a bit, and then bring up the emitter size in X, Y, and Z, depending on where you want your smoke to be. Well, that rhymed, holy shit. So yeah, this looks quite cool in my opinion. The next thing we're gonna do is bring down the velocity to 0 and the velocity randomness to 0, so they just stick there and we basically fly through them. Yeah, this won't look too cool because as you can see, those particles here would actually be behind the container, so you gotta like try and fix that with masks or some stuff like that. If you want to know how to mask, I also have a tutorial for that, of course. But yeah, so then the next thing we're gonna do is go into the particle settings, go to the particle type and change it from sphere to cloud, I believe. Nope, that's not the right one. I think it was textured polygon or something. Sorry, I already recorded this tutorial a while ago, but then I had to redo it, so yeah. So what we're gonna do now is bring in the large smoke composition we have with the alpha map. So as you can see now, we have an invisible background and not just the picture like that. So that's exactly what we want. And then in the particles options, we're gonna for the layer, we're gonna select the large smoke layer. This might give you a warning, but just ignore that, or you can bring down the size of the large smoke a bit, because it appears to be quite long render time sometimes, but that should be alright. So let's disable the large smoke layer and play around with these settings. So actually I want a lot of more particles. That's not really what the amount of particles I wanted. So I'm just gonna go to the keyframe before we put it down to 0 and just increase that, and that way we'll have a lot of more particles. So that might be a bit too much, 1000 actually. Let's just put it to 500 for now to just show you how to do this. The next thing we're going to do is increase the lifespan so they don't just pop off at some point, because that's not what we want. And then we're going to bring up the size by quite a bit, also the size randomness and the opacity randomness, and maybe the overall opacity if that's what you want, if you don't want that much visibility of the smoke. So then you can play around with the placement of those particles, maybe put them like wherever you think it looks cool. I would say have them like this, and as you can see now, we have some nicely tracked 3D smoke. This doesn't look too nice. You can always go in there and play around with the settings, make it look more random. So another thing you should do is go to the visibility and increase the far vanish and actually the near vanish fade, so that way, as you can see, some of the particles are already like disappearing. So like the closer you get to the particles, they will just slowly fade out and not just pop off when the camera hits them, because that's not what we want. And there's another thing you could do is go to the rotation tab and play around with that and increase the random rotation so they are a bit okay, maybe not in Z space. So I don't know where to actually just change the Z rotation randomly right now. I'm sorry for that, but I'm sure there's an option, because that was last time I recorded this tutorial. But yeah, this is pretty much what you gotta do for the smoke. Just play around with the settings. As you can see, some of them don't look that good. Yeah, you can play around with the amount, with the emitter size, like just play around with everything. You can do some really cool things with this. So now we just have smoke on the right. That might look a bit better and don't have it that big like in X space, so that way we have a lot of more smoke. Now I'm gonna show you how to motion track the flare, which is quite easy as well. This time we need a black solid layer. Let's name this flare and add the effect optical flares. There we go. Or you could also use No Light Factory or whatever you want to use. Now set the transfer mode to add or screen. I prefer add. And now we're gonna do something. So if you just want to add a flare, the fastest thing is, like, if you wouldn't have the smoke, let me just delete that. You could just go into the camera tracker and just select the point at the very far back and put that to your origin, just like that. And then just go to the flare settings and put the source type to 3D, and that way you already have it perfectly tracked to that point. As you can see now, as I scrub through, this flare is tracked. You could also put it like maybe on there if we have a tracking point on that thing. Yeah, we do. So let's just put the origin there. Now it's a lot closer to the camera, so we probably have to decrease all of this a bit more. And sometimes you gotta replace it to the exact point. As you can see now, this flare is also perfectly tracked. So, but if you do have smoke and want to add a flare, and then want to render it out and then do it all over again, you can just go into the camera tracker effects tab and just create a null, simply create a do the same thing and create a null object back there. So that way you can press P for position and find out the position of that very point, and then you can just go into your flare settings, put it to 3D. As you can see now, it would be tracked to this very point here, as you can see, but we want it to be quite far back in Z space, so I'm just gonna copy and paste that there, then X and so on, and that way we're gonna increase the brightness or scale a bit more again because it's that far back, and then just adjust it a bit more in X and Y wherever you want it to be, but don't play around too much with the Z positioning. And that way we've got this flare tracked as well. So that is pretty much it for this tutorial. Please leave a rating if this helped you. I haven't really seen a tutorial on these effects before, so yeah, I thought I could make a tutorial. Another thing I wanted to do is ask you guys if you want okay, this looks shit, I know. If you guys want an HUD graphics pack or something like that, I just played around a little bit in After Effects yesterday and create this. And yeah, if you guys want me to create more of that kind of stuff and maybe release a graphics pack or something like that for After Effects for your projects, then just leave a rating and write that in the comments. So thanks you very much for watching, and yeah, that's it for now. Bye.